Welcome, this is Teacher Jeffrey. Hit subscribe and click like for our topic for today. It is about pollination, and we will concentrate on types of pollination and agents of pollination. This is under the topic sexual reproduction in plant. Ready? And we will start. Prepare your pen and paper, for we will have a quick check in every topic. Let us start. Pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma. The pollen grain is formed in the anther. In this process, it needs to transfer from the male part to the female part. Thus, it needs to land on the stigma. From the male part, which is anther, to the female part, which is the stigma. Prepare your pen and paper. We will now have our quick check. I advise you to click pause while you are answering the quick check. Pause the video. Let us have a quick check. Number 1 question. Define pollination. Number 2. Name the structure that contains the pollen grain. Number 3. Name the structure where the pollen lands during the process of pollination. Let us now check if our answers are correct. For question number 1, define pollination. Pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma. Number 2, name the structure that contains the pollen grains. And the answer is anther. Third, name the structure where the pollen lands during the process of pollination. And the best answer is stigma. We will now begin the types of pollination. We have 2 types of pollination, and these are the self-pollination and cross-pollination. For self-pollination, it is the transfer of pollen grain to the stigma of the flower of the same plant. Example A and B in the drawing. While cross-pollination is the transfer of pollen grain to the stigma of the flower of another plant of the same species, the example of which is C. These are the types of pollination. Now prepare your pen and paper. We will have another quick check. Reminder, it is better to click pause and answer the quiz. Let us begin. Click pause and take the quick check. Number 1. Name the types of pollination. Number 2. In the diagram, which shows A. Cross-pollination, B. Self-pollination. Now, we will check if our answers are correct. Number 1. Name the types of pollination. These are self-pollination and cross-pollination. Number 2. In the diagram, which shows A. Cross-pollination, the answer C. B. Self-pollination, the answer A and B. Agents of pollination. These agents are insects and wind. We'll start with insect as an agent of pollination. The flower is pollinated by an insect, so the bee are also called pollinators. This is an insect-pollinated flower. This plant needs to adapt characteristic features that will attract insects. The insect then help transfer the pollen from the anther to the stigma. Try to check the hairy legs of the insect and body. This will attract the sticky pollen to its hair, bringing it to the stigma of the flower or to another flower. Wind. Wind is also an agent of pollination. After this slide, we will have another quick check. So we will consider now the wind as an agent of pollination. As you can see on the drawing, this is an example of a wind-pollinated flower. This plant needs to adapt characteristic features that will use wind in the process. The wind then helps transfer the pollen grain from the anther to the stigma. Prepare your pencil and paper. We will have our last quick check for this topic. Click pause and then answer our last quick check. Number 1. Name the two agents of pollination. Second question. In the diagram, which is a wind-pollinated flower? Check your answer. The first question is asking about the naming the two agents of pollination, and the answer must be insect and wind. Second question, in the diagram, which is a wind-pollinated flower? The best answer is flower B. This ends our topic, pollination. We define pollination, study the types of pollination and agents of pollination. This is Teacher Jeffrey. A goal without a plan is just a wish.